age, I didn't have a voice. I live in an era when my own voice comes as a surprise to me. I'm not doubting the good intentions of my brother or my father, nor their wisdom. But I still don't have space in my own home to voice my opinions. Like many historians, like Tanika Sarkar, would later argue, the body of a woman became the site of many battles waged against colonialism. But the woman herself had no say in it. I only hope that in the coming years, women will have more agency.
I wouldn't be friends with someone like you.
Okay, I was just pulling your leg. Anyway, let's hop on for a coffee maybe because this pandemic did really pull us the social life.
Yeah, good idea. I saw a dhaba maybe 100 meters from here. We can go there.
Dhaba? No dhaba, please. Huh? So I know this really amazing fab place. They sell this really good local artisanal organic products, and you have to try their cardamom tea latte and avocado salad. It's awesome.
Cardamom tea latte and avocado salad. I must say you're a very privileged activist.
Well, I don't know what you'll say after that because then you just fish it out and they'll just deliver it. So, when was the last time we met? Was it the Jantar Mandir?
No, it was when I got you out on bail, remember? Yeah. You were protesting that man who had embezzled those funds earmarked for women.
Oh yeah. How could I forget?
How could you forget that? It was really impressive. He actually resigned after that. Well done.
Anyway, here we are. Such an unlikely meeting spot.
Yeah, I know. What a place.
And what a day.
Why? What's wrong with Republic Day?
Well, nothing really except the fact that this day inherently reminds me of the laws written by only men, like men, period, men.
No, now see, our constitution might have certain flaws and policies, but I think when it came to gender equality, it got things pretty right.
See, I don't see any agency here. I mean, all the do's and the don'ts and the whys and the hows, well, they were just defined by men.
That's like practically every rule book in the world, so it's not a big deal.
Okay, for you it might not be, but come to think of it. According to me, my POV, as they say, the millennium, of course, the constitution of yours, this constitution of yours, I think that was the part of the original sin that ruined the country. I mean, neither did it give us the democratic paradise that it promised, nor it was ruthless enough to be that machine to compete with the advanced nations. So, what do you have to say to that?
I agree the system has some flaws, there's red tape and other problems, but I suppose some people would say that when it puts bread on your plate, why would you have a problem with it?
Well, when none of us across the divide is happy, I really wish I could ask, Ambedkar these questions.
Here I am.
Excuse me, who are you? I mean, I've been to Amarjeet a lot of times. I've never ever seen you.
When I work at Amarjeet Amarjeet's, but only in the mornings because I go to college in the evening.
Evening college. How nice. So yeah, where was I?
You wanted to ask these questions to Dr. Ambedkar himself.
Oh yeah. So firstly, I believe that this whole constitution thing was a men's affair. I mean, it was all framed by men, and how is it exactly possible that they just considered only half of the population while framing it?
But aren't you wrong on facts here?
What?
I just said you're wrong on facts here.
What?
Firstly, the Constituent Assembly had 15 women members to begin with. Granted that this was a small number compared to the actual strength of the Constituent Assembly, but still you would not be right in saying that there were no women at all.
What did you say your name was?
My name is Bhima. I study law at the evening college, like I said before. So, do you still think that the Constituent Assembly was a men's only affair? After all, Ambedkar did make all the efforts from his side to ensure that women had agency through law. Take the Hindu Code Bill, for example. Women getting absolute rights to property was not a small thing. I'm sure you would agree with me.
Yes, I actually do agree with you. I think when it comes to gender equality, we did a very good job in the Constitution. After all, there are rights which our Constitution guaranteed for women, which were not assured in many other countries till much later. In some so-called advanced countries, women didn't get the right to property till 1970.
That's right. The struggle for suffrage and property have a long history in all parts of the world. That is certainly not just an Indian problem.
Of course, that doesn't mean we got everything, right? I mean, there are those who say that our constitution in many ways is a borrowed constitution. After all, we've copied large parts of it from the Government of India Act 1935. And certain systems, people would say that the federalism and judicial review looks like the constitution of one country, while the parliamentary system looks like that of another country. So, it's borrowed, and in many ways it's kind of obsolete also. What do you have to say about that?
Please tell me something. Can there be anything original in a constitution framed at that hour in the history of the world? What the scope of a constitution should be has long been settled. Given that fact, all constitutions in their main provisions must look similar. Any new things, if there can be any, must be introduced to remove the faults and to accommodate the constitution better to the society. And I agree that the constitution has produced a large number of provisions of the Government of India Act 1935. After all, a constitution is not a work of fiction. Law is not fiction. We have to work upon the foundations laid by our pioneers. We just cannot do without them.
Okay, hold on. This constitution of yours, it very happily took care to correct all the errors. But tell me, lack of autonomy to the states, even in the 50s, don't you think that was anachronistic? I mean, no major democratic country in the world has such a strong centralization. Considering the fact, when in particular we are such a diverse country with respect to languages, with respect to culture, with respect to almost everything else. How about that?
I disagree. However much you may try to deny powers to the center, it is difficult to prevent the center from becoming strong. Conditions in the modern world are such that centralization of powers is inevitable. That is the case even with the US. Be that as it may, we must resist the tendency to make it stronger. It cannot chew more than it can digest. Its weight must be commensurate with its strength. Otherwise, it may fall on its own way.
But then, don't you think we have gone and overcomplicated it? I mean, the Constitution, in many ways, it's a lawyer's paradise. But for the common man, it could pose a nightmare. So many provisions, so many limitations. We give fundamental rights on one hand, on the other hand, we take them away by limiting them. We've gone and overcomplicated and made a mess out of it. Don't you think?
Tell me, ladies, isn't it laughable that you, who live in this age of obsessive specialization, are asking me this question? What document which deals with matters as serious and important as a country's destiny is easy to read? There is danger in simplification because when things are simplistically worded, there is room for doubt. And ideally, in a country's constitution, we should not be taking any chances. And as for the question on fundamental rights, our fundamental rights are closer to the American Bill of Rights. Just because the fundamental rights are a gift of the state does not mean that the state cannot qualify them.
Well, pretty impressive, Bhima, I must say. I'm swayed. I mean, for a second, I thought I was in the Constituent Assembly listening to the speech myself.
Well, it was my pleasure to have this conversation with you, but pardon my abrupt behavior, if you may. I really have to rush. I have a few other deliveries to make, so excuse me.
I must say I'm impressed. Even in college, maybe I should go back and do some unlearning even in college.
Well, with that respect, even I think I'll have to start seeing things from a different perspective.
Hi Chitra, here you go, here's your order. Sorry for the delay, but I was just so busy doing an interview with the Wharton School of Business actually, and it took forever, oh gosh. But anyway, here you go, enjoy your meal ladies.
What is that?
What's your food?
But Bhima already delivered us the order, right?
What? Who's Bhima?
Yeah, she gave us the order.
I don't know what you're talking about or who you're talking about.